Good evening.
Good evening.
And welcome to PQP, Part 2. We're here for your final week,
Yes.
Module 6 for the second week, which is kind of nice because
Yeah.
hopefully things slow down a bit for you. And we'd like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of Animkey-Waju, Fort William First Nation. And so welcome. I had fun, I have to say. We've had a quick 7 weeks with this course. And one of the key things that we wanted to both talk about today were the practicums.
Yeah.
The presentations, the conversations, the feedback to each other, the questions people had were very, very interesting and really high caliber.
Yeah. And the variation of practicums, and this is one of our favorite spaces. I mean, I guess technically we're taking the course along with you at some point. And I hope that you saw in at least both our commentaries as we go through those. We are learning from you as well and your practicums, and I hope everyone, though you may not have commented on everyone's practicum, I hope everyone got an opportunity to at least review everyone's, because we varied everywhere from math to nutrition to well-being to parent engagement, strategies that included school only, school and board system. Some included
Parents,
provincial
community
initiatives and community initiatives. Just a fascinating wide array, and it really speaks to the variety of the job, and sometimes
school by school.
Yeah.
So
and
right now you're in one school, and so
and what may be
well-being might
important,
be, and another school might be math. That's
friends.
major
Yeah,
focus.
and I know one of our folks one of my folks focused on parent engagement, which was really critical at this time for their board. Several others, of course, are focusing on math, but what was fascinating is within the math,
The variety.
the variety of strategies of addressing it and the varieties of analysis and data that was brought forth. And I have to be quite honest, I've used quips from practicums and slides from practicums already in my own school. So thank you so much for doing the rich work that you're doing and sharing it in the methods that you are, because it has been been valuable for me, and I don't doubt that it's been valuable for all of our participants.
Yeah.
And school staffing.
So we were just saying what a brilliant group you are.
Yes.
Because, some of you did comment that you did spend a lot of time on it.
It was the hardest brain
Everybody
drain.
did a really fabulous job with it. And some of you were fortunate to have friends or partners in the same house who, already knew how to do this. So you kind of struggled a bit on your own, and then you got some feedback and then went back at it. But overall, I think intuitively people really had a good understanding of how that flow of the day could work. I had put a little comment last night when I was reading through this section in my group. And because if you put the jobs as less than full time, you can actually start them a bit later and ending a bit earlier. But if you end up with a 1.0, the ministry only funds on a 300-minute day. So you don't get paid for the extra 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. And in our collective agreement that we work with our elementary teachers, they are not allowed to have less than 30 minutes of planning time.
Right.
So if you give them 20 minutes, it's not called planning time. It's called go help and read to some kids in grade 1. Or, I would assign them instructional tasks to go support and team teach for a period of time in one of the classes for some additional support. So just be aware of what your collective agreements look like. In reality, as I put for many people, you will never do this alone. You will work with your HR people. You'll work with a colleague. If you're a vice principal, you'll work with your principal. We learned last session that there's some school boards in Ontario that have a computer program for elementary. So they just plug it all in and off
or
it goes.
people who do it for them. And I commented amongst my group, and I know you read that each time I see this, I learn from other boards and in the ways in which they do that. But the reality of it is, this is the way that our board staffs, and I mentioned in my comments that includes our large French immersion schools, which have 50 plus teachers.
Oh, that took a long
and
time.
dual tracks.
And
all the complications you can possibly imagine. And the first time Denise actually worked in a dual track school, the two of us worked on it, and I think and with the vice principal, it took 3 days. Just to get our heads around it.
It was new, and I had staffed already for 5 years.
Yeah, and as well. And I know the first time I did my staffing exercise, I finally went, I need some help. And so calling HR, and they walked me through a process, which to this day I still use when I'm staffing in school. And many of you will never have to deal with this. Our FDEs are specific, of course, to our board. They're specific to our collective agreements, those pieces. But it's a good exercise in the sort of things you may face as you walk into a school or walk in any board. And scheduling is really critically important. And I think scheduling's been a fairly simple thing for me because it's something I comprehend well. However, moving into my new school was one of the first times I had to think about why scheduling was so important to the instructional process. And we, the ministry is saying 100-minute literacy blocks. The ministry has required 60-minute math blocks at this point. That means that you, as a principal, if you're creating scheduling for your entire group and they're planning, have got to figure out how to create big blocks of time that are open every day.
And if you're lucky enough to have 2 planning people and you have some split grades, you might have a 2-3 and a 3-4. Try to put those 2 teachers together, or the 1-2 and the 2-3, or the 2 and the 2-3, so that they can have some common planning time.
Right. So, though this was a kind of a fun and brain tease exercise, it also has scheduling has some really serious implications for instructional leadership, and that is thinking about how do you schedule your blocks of time so that the interruptions are minimized, the transitions are minimized, because we know transitions are difficult for some kids, which means they're ultimately difficult for all kids. And how do we minimize those things, and how do we capitalize on big blocks of instructional time?
And one of my schools was a former high school, so it was very long, plus I had a second story. And I had classrooms scattered all over the place. So I was looking at the transition time for the teacher moving from class to class to class. So, I didn't want them running from upstairs on the second floor from one end to the opposite corner of the school, which was 600 meters away, and then back over here. So I had to look at where the teacher was and move them. And actually, as a result of that first year there, in the spring, we got a committee together and we rearranged the whole school so that it made more logical by zones of grades. And then that allowed the itinerant teachers to move a little more smoothly through a wing.
As brain drain as it was, as some of my folks described it, it's a valuable exercise and a good sort of good thinking about where you're going.
And we gave you 3 case studies, so quite a little variety, and also some people put additional case studies in there of their own, just for other experiences. And these come out of the Ontario College of Teachers, and they actually have a couple of really good resources on their website around case studies, and their solutions with looking at key ideas and kind of the key considerations for ethical pieces and the standards and the acts and regulations, and then sort of the process piece. So for the case studies, really, we were asking you to have a good look at the process. And most things, if you have a clean process, can be managed with minimal legal issues. So clean process, making sure your process actually adheres to what the standards are is usually the way to go. So,
okay.
Any comments on that? Or?
No, but we look forward to reading absolutely more of your practicums and finishing that up. Just a few things. Be certain that when you are submitting your final practicums, there are some requirements, and all of those requirements are in our course introduction section. And that course introduction includes the forms, because we do need your evaluation forms that are signed and filled out by your mentors. We do need your 2,500 word summative report, your reflection journal, and your log. And your log of hours is for the log of work done in your practicum, not the log of hours done in this course. So just a distinction there.
And there's a little PowerPoint there. It says Practicum Part 2 PowerPoint. That's the little PowerPoint we did with a voiceover that very, I think, clearly, or we tried to be as clear as possible, explaining what are the key components. I just want to tell you, and half you'll probably forget, but I'm going to say it anyway. When you submit your practicum, send it to the lakeheadu.ca account for Christy, myself, and Colleen Woods. If you end up sending it not fully completed, or you send it into the My Course link space, it often gets lost in there. Or if we get like part of it and we send you back an email, those emails get separated, and it makes it very difficult for us to be timely in returning your practicums. It does say 3 months after the completion of the course. We actually give you the summer off. So for us, 3 months runs around the end of November. So if you send it in earlier, that's absolutely fine. We had a lot of people last fall that sent it in September, October, because they had pretty much completed their practicum by now, and they did the write-up over the summer and then got it off their plate. You will not see on your Ontario record card this part 2 until your practicum is completed and submitted to us, signed by you, your mentor, and ourselves. Then it goes to Colleen Woods, who sends it through the registrar's process.
And then that always takes between 2 to 4 weeks at OCT.
But you can go into the grade section to see your mark for the actual course.
And also in your grade section, you will see feedback comments on various assignments. So you can see both. Okay.
So we will send you an official graduation video
Yes.
late next week or early the week after. I think Christy's taking a little vacation there at the end of the month.
Yes.
So we'll probably do the video before she leaves. But we'll send that to your lakeheadu.ca email. So just keep an eye on that towards the end of June. And you'll get our farewell. And I guess just on behalf of the university and both of us, we'd really like to thank you for joining us on this journey. And we hope that it's been a useful learning experience for you.
Yes. Thank you.